exactly what you are going to see on Friday. There are things you have seen before. Nevertheless, it will be an opportunity to just make a revision of each of them. So I'll start and short one.
Are you going to put on the big screen?
Do we need it? I'll be writing if I have to. I don't need it.
Okay.
I'll be telling you one by one what you need to know. I hope you're ready. So in the exam on Friday, come in with your device. That's all you need. They are very simple ones you have seen before. And that's what I'm going to start taking one by one. It covers all the chapter, ranging different numbers of questions from each of them. Starting with number one. Remember, the fact that I'll put it this way, I gave instruction to the canvas to scramble the question. So your number one will not be hers, okay? But these are all the content, the same content for everyone. So for scrambled all over. Please look at this image. Did you see it? Did you see it? Test your knowledge on, I won't read the questions, but I'll give you an idea. This is a phylogenetic tree, all right? Showing you the different species kind of the bear. If you notice there is a white one, brown, and all of that. So what the question is trying to tell you to look for something like which one appears to have descend from the common ancestors, kind of. Are you with me? So it's like a phylogenetic tree trying to tell you, just to reason out, the common sense reasoning from this image you have just seen. Are you with me? On your knowledge about phylogenetic tree. Next one. Remember we talked in ecology about the various kind of relationship that do exist. And I was telling you is to pay attention to not just the kind of relationship that you have between species, but the positive or negative sign that follows them. For example, in the relationship of parasitism, let me check you out. What will be the two organisms? One is parasiting on the other one. Give me the signs that will be for them. Did you get it? So it's very good. What about competition? Minus and minus. So it's a lot of them in the exam. Alright, so this next question is just asking you, I won't tell you the organism they mentioned here. Assuming you have a sheep, or they call it like that, so you call it sheep, right? And a goat, to have to graze on a particular land. What kind of relationship is that? What? Competition. Do you get it? They both feed on the same, they are both herbivores. So they have to compete for that grazing. Does you get it? So, and you have a lot of them. So when I get there, I will jump there. I see that you know what you're talking about. Commensal, you know what commensal is. Mutualism. It's just like a mutual relationship. You benefit, I benefit, plus plus. Does it make sense? So these are all scattered over. When I get there, I jump so that I don't have to repeat myself. Next one is about, remember in the course of all of our study, during the time we were looking at the first aspect, evolution, I talked to you about some certain relationship in terms of reproductive isolation. And I told you there are pre-zygotic reproductive isolation mechanisms and there were post-zygotic. Do you remember that was when we were talking about the temporal, we talked about the mechanical, we talked about. Do you remember all of this? Mechanical, temporal, behavioral. Just a quick recap. Behavioral, we said, has to do with the relationship. That's a courtship relationship. Frog will make and the real one will come. They pick up, they fly their color to attract whoever wants to come. Do you remember all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Temporal, we said it's about the season or timing. One is winter, the other one is summer. So how would they? So it's an isolation. Does it make sense? We also talk about mechanical. If you remember, I always said Chihuahua dog and the very gigantic one. So there is a question on that. You should never fail it. Is it correct? Now, so that's what this next one is all about. Trying to ask you which type of isolation is that. Now, this next one is about homology. What is homology? Anytime you see the word H-O-M-O, I always told you, it means what? The same. Simply put, same or common ancestor. Are you with me?
Yes.
I'll move on. What is bioremediation? Bioremediation. Do you remember? Bioremediation. Do you remember? That is the one we talked about. Huh? Speak loud.
When you're talking about how they is used in the real world.
Exactly. But in the real world, mostly I use the example of the what do you call it? This the sewage disposal. So it is bio. It's like using microlife or microorganisms to remove impurity. For example, the soil in your water plants. I said to you then that all our poop, water, pee, everything they go to what? The sewage disposal. And they use this process called bioremediation. Are you with me? Bioremediation is what they use to purify the water we get in our tap. The soil. Companies use it. But it's a process of using microorganisms. Alright? Purpose of what? Purifying things. Bioremediation is an example. Now, this one is still about, I don't think we should repeat it, it's still about homology. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is about that chapter 1. If you remember, chapter 1, we talked about the biological principles. Remember, I started talking to you in chapter 1 the last time. One of the questions here is about homeostasis, which is about what? Regulation of the body temperature and water. Are we together? So we should be able to remember that all life requires or begins with a cell. All life requires energy. And how do they get energy? The primary source of all energy is the sun. Through plants get it by photosynthesis, and everybody also depends on all of that and all. But this one is about homeostasis, and I tried to explain all of that to you during that last time we met. Next one, convergent evolution. We remember that? And I try to explain to you guys, English words, sometimes I use it to help you. When you see something converges, they come together in a place. So this time around, it's because it is an evolution. We use this way, we said two different species from two different lineages, but they chose to come together. That is the converging there. Are you with me? We said process of evolution will take place. They are two different things entirely, but because they have chosen to come into a locality, remember that now, that's where that comes in. So two things will learn there because it's also the question. So when I get there, I will jump. I said to you that the process coming together is convergent evolution. Now, because they are now in a different place, two different species, all right, they have to evolve something to make them survive their new locality. Are we together? That thing they evolve, friends, is called what? Analogous structure. It's in the first one. Are we together? So I will jump when I get there. Also, but this one is about convergent evolution. You guys are doing well. Now, the next one is about HIV virus. What does that virus? What does it deal with in the body? Good job. That's the answer. So nobody should fail that. Good job. Excellent. I'm serious. That's the answer. She doesn't mention it. Can we move on? Yeah. The next one, artificial selection, or call it selective breeding. We can't waste time on that. It's too less to waste time, right? We should move on.
Selective and artificial is the same thing, right?
Yes. Selective breeding or artificial selection means the same thing. What are vestigial structures? Anyone?
Structures that are not in use in like the recent or recent species, but they were used in like the ancestors.
And somehow they have been lost along the way of evolution. Remember, we were talking about in human, for example, the hair. And I was telling you there are some people that still retain that tendency that their hair can move up and down. We also talk about tail. You know, some people could have had tail, you know. When we were there in the womb, tail like a tadpole, it appears we do, but became vestigial. Alright? So those are vestigial structures. Are we following me? Rouse, are you here? You good? Now, this one is about island biogeography. And it's just one of the principles I talked to you about during that lecture. You know, simply put, remember I was trying to say, when you compare, one of the principles is about saying, in terms of species richness, which one will have more rich species? This large space and this small space, which one? The large one. So common sense. That's what that is all about. Now, next is about all of this. I won't tell you which one the question is about. Bottleneck effect, founder effect, sexual selection, and all of that. So you should know what each of them is by now. Am I correct to say? So I move on. If you don't, say you don't know, I can quickly, that's why we're revising. Alright, but go and check it out. Now, this one is about bacteria. You know, described that, I think chapter 19 or 17, I'm not sure. One is virus, the other one is bacteria. We talked about those factors, F factor, R factor, and what they do. Remember? Good job. So, and you know, the one that will send out the sex pillar is the F plus. The other recipient is what? When you know that, you have passed. In fact, I won't be surprised if all of you score 100. I'm serious. I'm serious. But except those who didn't come from this division, they don't have to. Even if they like, let them have COVID. I'm not trying to be very students like to write emails. I've gotten a lot this one. I have COVID, I have flu, I have that. I don't want to infect them.
For real?
They think a lot of
I'm
people
not joking. I'm not joking. You want me to show you?
No, I got a cold too. No, but it's true. A lot of people are actually sick.
Yes,
Even
I
I'm
so
sick,
too.
like,
I was
even
gonna
I-
tell. That's why I'm late.
Ladies,
I was
I
gonna
agree.
tell.
I agree. But you know, sometimes in life, and that's why I said if you love them, please record it so that you can give it to them. This cannot be, I can't repeat it again,
Yes.
but it's a plus. Is it not making sense? It's a plus to you. Well, I mean, if you have COVID, good. I mean, thank God. I can't do anything about that. So, now when we talked about ecology, one of the chapters, you remember, we talked about succession. And we said there is primary and secondary succession. Primary succession, we said nothing is on ground, I have an issue. But because something changes, then life began to come on board, right? That's primary. But for secondary, we said, and I was even using that farmers tend to sometimes, they will plant crops at this season, but will have the second season in mind. The one they are planting now is because they wanted it to replenish that soil with certain things that will be benefited, that will be beneficiary to the next season. Do you remember I said that? And we brought out certain things under that one. One is a positive one, the other one is a negative. And those are facilitation and inhibition. Do you remember? That's what this is all about. Are we together? The one that makes room for the next coming generation is facilitation. Are we clear? But the other one that it doesn't care about them. Anyone who comes on board first is the one. In fact, stop the other one. That is inhibition. Are we together? And we talked about tolerance too. Okay, so this one is about inhibition. So I won't go more than that. I've tried to give a revision of that also. Now this is all about virus. We are on number 16. It's about virus. Let's quickly talk about the characteristics of viruses. What? In fact, that's the answer to the question. Good job. All right? They are non-living, they are infectious agents.
Enclosed in a capsule.
They are made from what? They are surrounded by protein. They are having genetic material inside. We call that surrounding thing the capsid and all of that. Any other thing about them? They cannot survive without a living host. Are we together? And remember, under virus, we also talk about what? The various host range. Those who are carried by insect, we call them baculovirus. Those who are carried by humans, we talk about a variant of them. Are we together? So let's talk about that. I see that you are coughing, truly, but try and don't infect us, please. Are you free from COVID now?
Yes, I'm free from COVID. Why everybody think you can't have a normal cold no more?
The next one is about comparing binary fission and mitosis. These are questions you have seen before, except the ecology. Compare binary fission and mitosis. You know,
Binary is like a clone, and mitosis is like daughter cells, so they're not exactly the same.
go and study. Good job. Okay, go and study. So I won't, because if I begin to, huh? Prokaryotes, bacteria, precisely, yes. But mitosis, we also have a part of our system that undergoes mitosis. Okay?
And so making daughter cells. So before, so that's not going to be exactly the same.
Now, what is, remember this. Is it flu for everybody on COVID? Which one? What is the difference between these two?
No
Huh?
air. Air, no air.
Don't say here. What?
Oxygen.
Which one?
Air, oxygen, needs oxygen.
Oxygen.
That's no.
No oxygen. Okay. If I had this,
I just studied
so what is the difference now? Or what about this two now? If I had that,
Needs oxygen, poisoned by oxygen.
say it again.
Needs oxygen, and poisoned by oxygen.
Do you all get that? If you don't say, you don't get it. You don't. Now let's explain, because that's the next question. Now, you know what this means? Oxygen requirements for bacteria. You know, when we were classifying bacteria, we use various things to classify them. We use their shape. That was when we said we have the foci. It's not in the question, but I'm just trying to expatiate since you say you don't understand. We have the foci. Those are the spherical ones. We have the rod ones. We call them the bacilli. We have the spirochetes. Those are the ones that are spiral in shape. And we talked about two types of those ones, but that's not by the way. When we also classify bacteria, we use the amount of peptidoglycan. Remember the gram state? That was when we talked about what the gram positive, they have abundance of what? Peptidoglycan compared to the what? The gram negative. Then we now finally talked about some other various things they can use to classify them. So these are oxygen required bacteria. We call them aeros. Are you with me? But the moment you introduce the A without, they don't need oxygen. But it doesn't mean that with little oxygen they will not survive. Are you with me? Hello? But ideally, oxygen is a poison to them. They don't require it. You guys following me? Now, the moment you introduce this word, obligate, what do you think it means? Compulsory, mandatory. My friend, are you with me still?
Yeah.
That's what it means. So, that is mandatorily, alright? This, they can't even smell oxygen. If they smell it, that's what you meant by what? It is a poison, they'll die. Do you get it now? They can't smell it. But if you don't put that obligate, maybe with little oxygen, they will still try to strive. But when it's obligate, they don't need it. It's a poison. Alright, so that's what the next one is all about. I'm moving on. Number 20 or 19. Remember we talked about in ecology, I was trying to talk to you about this shape, J and X. This is for exponential. Do you remember those graphs? That's the next one, so go check it out. Next one is still about the things I've talked to you about. Pre-zygotic reproductive isolation, temporal, behavioral, mechanical, so I'm moving on. Also, I didn't discuss the post-zygotic. You remember the 3 post-zygotic? What are they? Hybrid,
yeah, invert.
hybrid sterility, hybrid inviability, and hybrid breakdown. Do you remember what they are? That's what, I think there are about 2 or 3 questions on that. So,
And what did you say that was?
Hybrid.
The 3 zygotic.
post-zygotic reproductive isolating mechanisms. There are 3 of them. Hybrid sterility, that's the one I said. When you look at when somebody is sterile, what does it mean? It cannot reproduce, right? Or it doesn't have potency to reproduce. So that's when we talked about the donkey and the ox. I hope I pronounce it like America. Ox. How do you guys pronounce it? Ass. Are you sure? Fetu, please pronounce it. My friend, how do you pronounce that? The horse. How do you pronounce it? What you say? No, I just want to change my own accent. So, it is that one we use hybrid sterility so that you remember in the exam. Because they give birth to a mule, which is what? Sterile. So that is hybrid sterility. Are we together? But the one we were using for hybrid inviability, I said the word viable, it won't survive. It's not fit for life. Even though it will come by, the baby or offspring will come, but that offspring can't survive life. So it's not viable. The other one is the hybrid breakdown. I said the first generation, F1 generation will come back, they will be okay. But going further, if that, this thing is so loud. If that generation now wanted to go ahead and mate, remember what we said? There's a breakdown. They cannot give birth to anything. So that's what that is all about. So that's what this next one is all about. But of course, you can see some other ones which I will jump when I get there. Now, when we talked about, I think chapter, is it 26, 27? Remember we talked about invertebrates and vertebrates. All right? Under invertebrates, there are 2 questions on the mollusk family of mollusca, and that's the family of the snail. Are you with me? So the question is, I don't know how to draw. Let's assume this is a snail. Okay? I don't know how to draw. I told you, don't laugh at me. And this is the shell. Okay? Remember in the textbook or in the why are you laughing? I want you to hear me. Why are you guys doing this to me?
I didn't think it could be that bad.
Oh my God. I'll take it out. I just want to try and explain something. Now, there's a question asking you for what is the purpose of this muscular organ there? There is another question asking you the mouth. What do we call it? Who remembers? That mouth. What do we call the mouth? The radula. Radula. And that organ is for motility, of course.
You say ask about the mouth, and what's the other question?
That organ, this muscular organ, what is it using for?
Huh? Wait, you said 2.
Yeah, that's what I just said. 2 of them. The mouth and then the muscular organ.
Oh, okay. So which one is considered the radula?
The mouth is the radula. That's
So
what.
what's the name again?
It's just a muscular organ for movement, for
that's why.
motility.
Okay.
It doesn't have a name. Are we together? Then what secretes that shell? That's another question on that topic. Just that's what you remind me. That's the 3rd question on this in particular. This shell, go and search that one. I won't tell you. What secretes this shell? Hmm? You don't. Go and check it out. It's in your book. You talked about it. I can't feed you with everything. I just want to ensure nobody fails. Okay? But no matter what you do, people will still fail. Remember when we have this, what do we call this one in cladogenesis? This is the nodal point. Okay?
Like the mucus?
Do you get it? The nodal point, that's the branching point. When you start now having organisms here, this nodal point is the branching point. Okay? So there's a question on that. And the entire, what is happening there is cladogenesis. And remember, in anagenesis, we said it's a straight line. Straight line, okay? Just like that. Now, the next one is about, when we even discussed on ecology, I said no matter the kind of community you have, whether primary succession is taking place or secondary, I said to you, or tolerance, eventually every community reaches what we call a climax. Do you remember that? And then the event may start all over again. There must always be a climax. That's what the next one is all about. Are we clear?
So what were the two questions on the mollusk, like snail? What were the two questions you talking about?
The mouth is the
Fetu, can you help me? Speak.
the mouth is the medulla, and it has muscular
Muscular organ
components in it.
for movement. And then the next one is what secretes the
Is it
shell.
a mucus?
Is the answer
Or-
That's the third question.
is it mucus?